Hello and welcome to Anime Recapped. Today we'll be covering episodes 5 to 8 from the first season of Dr. Stone. This is the second out of 3 parts. Lay back and enjoy the recap. As Taiju comes running after feeling that something was terribly wrong, he sees Senku falling to his death. He runs to hold Senku's body in hands and cries for him, calling out to him to wake up. Tsukasa stands there as this happens as he tells himself that Taiju will probably lash out, which is something he doesn't want because he'd have to kill him too. After some consideration, Taiju lifts up a heavy rock as Yuzuriha tells him to not do something he'll regret. He agrees and throws the rock over to Tsukasa. He knows Tsukasa will keep a close eye on him because he wouldn't want to be ambushed so easily. This allows Yuzuriha to grab the gunpowder remaining and throw it at Tsukasa, and Tsukasa kicks it, breaking the container and surrounding himself with the powder. When the rock hits the gunpowder on the ground, it ignites and explodes around him, giving Taiju and Yuzuriha the chance to escape with Senku's body. Tsukasa realizes when they are long gone that Taiju wouldn't hurt him even though he spoke like was going to. When they finally reach a safe place, they try to revive Senku using CPR but to no avail. Yuzuriha remembers that Senku kept tilting his head to the side as if telling Tsukasa where to hit him. When they check the back of his head, they find that he still has a piece of stone left there. After Senku had told them that the stone may have some healing properties in it as they have cracks on their bodies but are perfectly fine, the two hope that after they pour the miracle fluid on him, the stone will heal him and bring him back to life. They use the fluid on the stone and Senku goes down memory lane. As he laid in the middle of his school ground from 3,700 years ago, he kept counting the seconds, and from that he was able to tell which season it was, and after 3,700 years, in the spring, he decided he would just wake up. He did, and realized that he was the only one around. The school was gone. Everything was covered in nature and the people who had turned into stone then were still there. He wondered how he was able to break out of the stone, but first he needed to eat, get warmth and a place to sleep. So, he tried to impress some monkeys with his fire-starting skills, but because he isn't as physically strong as Taiju, he got tired really quickly with no progress. But he didn't give up. He came up with a way to start a fire, finally impressing the monkeys, who were, at this point, watching him for their amusement. He successfully acquired food next, built a shelter and made himself some clothes to keep warm. By this time the monkeys were just blown away by his progress in just a few months. After realizing that he was exhausted from hunting for food, cooking the food and making other useful things for his survival, he sought out some help. The first person was to be his best friend, Taiju, because he was the brawn that could take care of the hunting while he took care of the thinking. He went back to the place he woke up from and tried to study the rocks to understand what he did to wake up. As he finally figured out that it was because of the nitric acid that was coming from a nearby cave where he saw many swallows flying around, he went to test out the hypothesis. He used the part of his head which still had the stone attached, and it turned out that he was right. He collected some acid and went to revive Taiju with a pour, but his efforts were futile because the process was longer than he expected. He took Taiju's body into the cave so that the acid would fall directly into it over time and get the job done. He knew Taiju was stubborn, so he'd stay conscious for 3,000 plus years just to confess to Yuzuriha. He finally wakes in the present and reunites with his friends. He quickly comes up with a plan to infiltrate Tsukasa's place, which he predicts to be the cave with the nitric acid, because Tsukasa would do anything to prevent him from getting the acid again for gunpowder. He tells Yuzuriha to do it while Taiju guards and protects her. He, on the other hand, goes the opposite direction to meet with whoever was signaling back with smoke. Before they bid their byes and head their opposite ways, Tsukasa, while heading back to the cave, comes across a girl with blonde hair and blue eyes, someone he knows isn't Japanese. As he stares at her, she ambushes him with her knives and tries to fight him because he had killed Senku, a sorcerer in her eyes. As she watched, she impresses him a little with her fighting skill, but not enough for him to not retaliate. Being the strong brute he is, he barely breaks a swear dodging her attacks. He swings once at her, sending her flying to some distance. He cuts down a tree and traps her under it so she doesn't tail him when he hurries to the cave. Senku hears the bang of the fallen tree and rushes to investigate it. He finds the girl there and helps her out using some pulleys. Although it takes hours and hours until the sun sets, Senku doesn't give up, which impresses the girl, who introduces herself to him as Kohaku. After successfully getting her out of the trap, they acquaint themselves with each other before going to sleep. She tells Senku about her village and make him realize that he wasn't the first human to be walking on Earth in 5738. The next day, Kohaku tells Senku that she will help him defeat Tsukasa. He didn't leave a great impression on her, that's for sure. She asks to take him to her village if he needs help, which he agrees to, after he explains to her why his smoke was darker than hers and why Tsukasa killed him. He helps her carry spring water to her village for her sick sister, Ruri, using a moving device he created from the pulleys from the previous day, to get there faster. Recycling science. When they reach the village, the guards deny him access to enter as he's an outsider who could be a potential threat to their livelihoods. Kohaku tells them that he's a sorcerer who could help with her sister's sickness, but they still refuse. When another boy whom the villagers know as a sorcerer hears this, he quickly emerges and demands to know who's copying him. He presents himself as the proud and only sorcerer of the village, Chrome. He challenges Senku into some competition to see who's more of a sorcerer than the other. Of course, Senku wipes the floor with him as he's an actual scientist while Chrome is just some boy who found some rocks, collected them, played with them and discovered some colorful fires. In other words, a scientist too. In turn, as Chrome had promised, Senku gets the access to his hut with his collectibles, located outside of the village, and discovers so many things that he didn't have at his disposal yet. Chrome tells Senku about the sickness that the village's princess, Ruri, has no cure. Even when Chrome, the sorcerer, tries to find one, it doesn't work. Senku tells Chrome about the world 3,700 years ago when the world was modern and science was God. It was easy to get diagnosed with a disease and even easier to get treatment and a cure for it, unlike in the Stone Age where you would die very easily from things like flu. So, Senku takes it upon himself the duty to create an antibiotic to cure all diseases as they did after the Stone Age. He soon tells Kohaku and Chrome about the creation of the antibiotic and what they need to make it. Despite all the things Chrome has collected over the span of his life, not one of the ingredients is available to them, so they must start from the beginning to find everything. First is iron. And even though they don't know where to start, Chrome shows Senku their people's way of telling the true north at all times when Senku realizes that the true north star has slightly shifted after many years. What Chrome's uses is a magnet, and magnet has iron in it, so Senku tasks them with finding it inside water. As they do their duty, they meet Suika, a girl wearing a watermelon helmet with holes for her eyes on it. She asks to help as she often feels useless because of her eyesight, which they call the fuzzy sickness in the village. After gathering enough magnetic sand, their next task is to burn it in a furnace at a high temperature to bring it to boil. They have to blow air into the fire to continuously increase the temperature rapidly. The task seems easy enough, but even after hours with the four of them working hard at work, nothing happens, proving that they need more manpower. Senku thinks up an idea to bribe everyone to help him, so he sends Suika to spy on the villagers and find out what they want the most. Some women want men which he can't provide, while some want a variation of food, which he absolutely can improvise. Using his today's knowledge, he improvises some ramen, and when they try some, they absolutely enjoy it, although he doesn't because it's made from foxtail millet and that stuff is disgusting.